right? Much love, much respect, family. I'm just going to be doing a quick presentation. I think it's a huge misunderstanding when it comes to what you call brahmacharya or celibacy or sexual transmutation. Now, this is a disclaimer before I start. Again, this path is mainly for elders. I am not saying that you have to give up sex entirely to be spiritual and to transmute and cultivate energy, but understand that it is still the highest path when you keep all that energy for yourself. And this is something that us as youths, me as a young man, it's good to know, because as you get older, as you start to mature and gain in your wisdom, you then will have the understanding on how to build your energy body, build your subtle bodies, so you wouldn't, again, you could extend your life. There's also a talk about how you could actually build your chi body to where you're conscious after death if you want to transcend what you call this human experience. All right. So again, I'm not saying that you have to give it up, but it is the highest path. And that's why they say, like I said in a previous video, in order to beat the matrix, you have to no longer desire an orgasm. That's another level. And of course, the food thing is a big part of it, but we're not going to talk about that. All right. So let me just share my screen, and hopefully this slideshow starts right here from current slide. Yes. Okay. Now, I'm just going to read this off. This is from a book that I recommend in my course called Blister the Celibate. Okay. Forced celibacy is toxic. All right. Now, celibate monks and nuns become the most energetic, focused, and effective beings on the earth. Unfortunately, the early church missed much of Christ's yoga-like message in the realms of meditation and technique. Lacking yogi techniques that make celibacy both doable and constructive, priests by and large do a poor job with celibacy. Then, by their failures, they give celibacy a bad name and lead naive moderns to view it as impractical. But juvenile inner conflict and wavering is only seen in a repression-only priest, here at family, who practices no effective meditation or prayer techniques which would allow him to both channel the energy upward and, more importantly, give him the transcendental divine perceptions which finally grounds a man's celibacy firmly. Both man and woman, even though they're talking about man, right? But man just loses more in sex, okay? Now, first, the attainment of celibacy requires a panoply of specific skills, techniques, and lifestyle conditions. Christians today, and even Christian clergy, lack most of these skills and lifestyle conditions. Second, celibacy is done well only as a game of transmutation. Third, effective meditation makes celibacy easy to attain, whereas a lack of effective and frequent meditation leaves it very difficult to attain, especially if one has developed any sexual addiction. All right. So again, it's not a game of suppression, it's a game of transmutation. And the wisest elders kept all of their energy and they transmuted it, because it came back to the brain. It was another level of awakening dormant DNA. Now, here's the important part right here. I would like to say that a vast majority of people on the planet have no idea what we will call spiritual celibacy, or as you get of age where you've lived the household years, you have your family, you have your kids, you enjoyed all the sex, you enjoyed all the food. Again, this was the real intention behind celibacy, on how it really benefits you spiritually. Now we're going to talk about what it's not, which when you talk to most people, these are the reasons why they go celibate. All right. Now, this is a great book. And this book is Celibacy and Transmutation of Sexual Energy for Deeper Meditation. All right. It's one of the recommended readings in the course. All right. Now, I do not mean, this is what he says, I do not mean the sort of celibacy forced upon others because of a lack of a mate. I do not mean the avoidance of affection and love between a man and woman, but rather a dramatic increase of profound love, appreciation, unity, and affection between the sexes. So you don't just say, oh, well, I'm not doing relationships no more, because you've been burned and you have this negative connotation with the opposite sex. You actually are doing this because you love them. You love and find this deeper connection with the opposite sex, because now you can gauge in as you build more on the cosmic energy. You could then look at that man or woman of the opposite sex as a friend without the appetite clinging on to you. All right. Again, I do not mean the sort of celibacy as a result of negligent old age and poor health. Now, that's a big one. All right. We ain't talking about that type. I do not mean the sort of celibacy as a result of some sort of hang-up, self-punishment, or guilt about sex. So this ain't, you don't have a bad or negative representation or a mental affliction to where you look at sex as this evil thing, all right, where you have a bad relationship with sex. And it's the same with food. You shouldn't be fasting constantly if you haven't developed a good relationship with food. With raw foods, you're constantly fasting and dry fasting, but every time you fall off hard. And I know, I speak from experience. So again, this isn't where you cut off sex because you have a negative connotation with the world and relationships. It's different. All right. I do not mean the sort of celibacy misused as a demonstration of a holier than thou egotism. Oh boy. I do not mean the sort of celibacy as a result of a religious belief or fanaticism. Check it. I do not at all mean eliminating or destroying the sensual desire. I rather mean the transforming of that desire into something much more valuable, practical, lovely, and beautiful. If you don't cultivate energy, if you don't know how to meditate, if you don't do any Qigong practices or pranayama or anything like that, and you haven't kept that sexual energy for yourself for at least 4 to 6 months, you don't know. You don't know if you're not a cultivator, if you don't get to that empty mind space. Let's continue. I do not mean weakening the erotic desire in any way, but rather strengthening it and transforming it to serve your truest needs and highest fulfillment. The more you keep, the more compassion you have for everyone around. I do not mean sacrifice, but a daily exploration of ever higher states of consciousness and deeper states of joy and bliss through transmutation via direct connection with nature's pranic vitality, deep, blissful meditation with all important goal of self-realization. That's it. So think about how most people on the planet, when they say, oh, you know, I'm going to go celibate, it's mostly for those reasons. It shouldn't be out of hurt. It shouldn't be out of pain. And I'm saying this as a young man just to simply spread the good news. That's all I'm doing. I know that as my life, I'm committing to cultivating, but as I develop more and more, I know that eventually in the future, this is something that I will live, because you now have gained the wisdom into seeing when you keep all those hormones and you open all of the energy channels, and that's what meditation does. All right. So you're actually learning how to love yourself, how to love the opposite sex, how to love the world. It's not from a place of having this negative thing with relationships with human beings. All right. Or with the opposite sex. So please keep that in mind. There is no benefit spiritually to celibacy if you don't purify, if you don't meditate daily, and you don't open those channels. You may get some physical benefits, but it's not really going to do the trick. Just want to say, Ami Tofa, infinite light and wisdom to you.